and it is an honor to have you today, Ms. Jackson. I want to know a little bit more about the Airbnb situation. How are you partnering with them and providing affordable housing?
So I actually don't do any Airbnb anymore. Airbnb is how I kind of got started into real estate. After or during my senior year in college, I used my last two Pell Grants to jump into real estate investing. And I started out with Airbnb when it was lucrative in Dallas during 2020, during the lockdown and everything. And then I went into travel nurses, regular long-term tenants, but now I only house Section 8 tenants. So exclusively, I only
Okay.
work with the Affordable Housing Program, which is getting HAP contracts for or from the state of Texas.
And you're an author?
I am. I am. I have one book published. I'm working on three more. One of them
Wow.
I have to have illustrated. It's a children's book on how to create and generate and manage passive income via vending machines. But the only one that
Wow.
I have published right now is a memoir of my life up until 2020. Yes, it's called
Okay.
Intimidating Black. It's published through Amazon.
That's very good. That's very interesting that you're looking out for the next generation. It seems like that's something that you're interested in because you're writing a book on passive income for vending machines for younger people. And I know education is a big part of your campaign. Am I right?
Yes, yes, I am super
Okay.
passionate about education. I actually not just did a speech, but I did a speech earlier this year in February concerning education. It was around the time that the country as a whole was talking about it because the report cards had just came out in regards to our academics. If you ask me, we are completely wasting our time when it comes to what we teach inside of these schools outside of basic math and reading.
Yeah.
I listed off during that speech, I listed off about 10 books, and it would be my guess only a handful of people actually researched what I was talking about. When it comes to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, The Richest Man in
Mm.
Babylon, we are literally doing a disservice to the future of America by
Yeah.
just brainwashing them into becoming workers. We're not birthing thinkers, we're creating workers. When I first announced my run for Congress,
Supposed to vote Democrat because of your skin color.
yes.
So at what point did you, at what point into your life, what age did you realize, okay, I am a conservative?
Um, and the year was probably maybe 2022 or
Okay.
three when I realized it, but I never really claimed to be a Democrat. People just
Yeah.
assumed that I was Democrat. But during that or right before that time period, I did volunteer with Democrats, but that was only because I was sent in by friends to support a political campaign. And at the time, I was so ignorant. I
Yeah.
didn't do any research on policies. I was just going to support a friend of a friend. And being in that space at that time, I was just so naive and just blind to what I was doing until I began to look at policy.
Yeah.
And that's what politics should be about, paying attention to policy. But, well, I don't know about your community, but in my part of the Black community, we don't do that. As long as you identify as a Democrat, you're safe, and we will never hold
Yeah.
you accountable. And if you're Black and a Democrat, that's bonus points. So it was very ignorant how I started in politics, but whenever I began to actually research policy and what's being voted on and how people
Yeah.
vote, I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute, wait a minute. So, one, the Democrats are no better than Republicans. And once you actually begin to dissect what is being voted on and who's voting on what and how, I was like, wait,
Right.
I'm a conservative, but I am an avid advocate against property taxes. The fact that we can say, oh, we're in a housing crisis or oh, we're in a rental crisis, yet we're taxing housing is just insane for me.
Yeah.
But just beyond property taxes, when it comes to what's being taught in school, what books are being handed to our children, whether or not we want to open border, employment, it's just different things. If you actually go down the list of what's being voted on and who's voting how, it was an easy choice. Like I said in that speech, it was very easy once I actually began to pay attention to policy instead of skin color or political party.
You being a black conservative running for office, um, what kind of backlash do you deal with on a daily basis?
Even if I wasn't running for office, the backlash that happens on a daily basis, I get
Yeah.
emails, comment section, phone calls. But I think it's important to highlight. I am the type of person where I don't ask for permission or forgiveness. I am very secure in who I am.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I hesitated on that speech. I didn't want to give it because every district that I live in, like the district that I'm running for now on a city level, and the congressional district that I'm about to announce my run for, I know for a fact that the voters in those districts, they're heavily Democrat. They're heavily Democrat. But especially in the black community, we are conservative. We just don't want to admit it. Like if you actually hold a
Exactly.
conversation, especially with the older population in the black community, we're conservative. We just
Oh
don't want to
yeah.
admit it. And it's tragic because when you have someone like me, my number one strategy for running any campaign is going door to door, especially being grassroots, and
Yeah.
especially running against incumbents. I'm not going for open seats. I'm challenging someone who has been in a seat for years or for at least a decade, and we know that they're not doing their job. So my strategy is going door to door, having these great conversations. I learned so
Yeah.
much about neighborhoods that I some that I grew up in, some that I didn't grow up in, just by going door to door. And they're just so anti-Republican. They're so anti-Trump because some of them think that Trump runs the Republican Party, which is, in my opinion, is not true. But whether or not you hate Trump or you despise the Republican Party, you or whether or not you want to admit that you're conservative or you have conservative values, at what point in time do you wake up and you stop being faithful to a political party?
Yeah.
Now, it's a lot easier for me to run as an independent. I can tell you that in these districts. Um, but there's hurdles to running as an independent that I recently learned when I ran for Congress. Like, for instance, you can buy your way onto the ballot as a Democrat. You can buy your way onto the ballot as a Republican. You cannot buy your way onto the ballot as an independent. And when you ask certain communities, hey, why don't you support independent candidates, knowing that the Democrat Party isn't perfect, they'll say ignorant things like, "Oh, well, independents don't win." Now,
Yeah.
I will say this, it's hard for an independent to win a presidential seat because of the electoral college, but
Mm.
city council, that's an independent race, that's a nonpartisan race.
That's true.
And if we support more independence on a local level, from city council to school board to county commissioner or on a state level, we would see more support on a presidential or federal level, but we don't have that support from the community. We don't have volunteers showing up to poll greet or to phone bank or to block walk with us. They choose between the two parties, even though they know that the Democrat Party isn't doing all that they could do for their communities. Or they know exactly who he is, but he's never knocked on their door. He's been in office for 4 years, 2 terms, and last election cycle he went unopposed. I have a fraction of the resources that he does. There's no excuse. There is Absolutely no excuse, especially when you're in clubs and bars every single night, that you have to negate or to explain that the reason why you haven't been knocking on doors and engaging in the community. He
Yeah.
sometimes he doesn't even show up to neighborhood meetings. But the number
Oh,
one thing that
okay.
I feel that he has failed at is the homeless issue in District 8. All of our shelters in the city of Fort Worth reside in District 8. And I'm not saying that that's fair on his end, but he knew exactly what he was getting into when he applied for the job back in 2021 and he successfully won after 6 years of running for office. You knew exactly what the issues were in District 8. And if you look from 2021 to 2025, when it comes to the homeless issue, it's gotten a lot worse. Drive down Lancaster and you'll see like there's tents up. And I was surprised to see the fires, but it's a very common thing when it's cold outside, because at first I was like, why are you, I was so mad. Why are you starting fires in the street? And then I had to think
Yeah.
about it. It's cold outside. They're trying to keep themselves warm. But even outside of winter, like we have tents set up, like this is a campsite. And sometimes code compliance or the police they'll clean up a campsite, but then the homeless people, they'll just move it down the street. So it never gets
Man.
resolved. And code
Yeah.
compliance, they'll harass homesteaders and fine them for small little things, but they don't pay attention to the campsites that cripple our neighborhoods.
Chris Nettles has been a council member in Fort Worth since 2021, but really playing defense on Monday. And Mayor Matty Parker saying that the city deserves better after an audio recording surfaced online of Nettles calling Parker and some fellow council members racist. Take a listen.
Then I did. I called every Republican a racist. Sure did. And we'll say it again. Yeah. Donald Trump, Michael Crane, Matty Parker, Carlos Flores.
This recording, Nettles says, is roughly 2 years old, posted by a former colleague who was part of his 2021 election campaign who clearly doesn't like him any longer. Nettles saying in a statement Monday that the recording was made during a private conversation without his consent, and that he was grappling with the realization that the council would not have the votes to approve the creation of a police oversight board toward the end of 2022, adding that, I want to be clear, I do not believe that my fellow council members are racist. I do, however, feel that there are systemic processes in our city that can and should be improved to ensure fairness for all residents. Crane, Flores, and Parker are still serving alongside Nettles on the council. Crane told me Nettles has reached out to apologize over the issue. We couldn't reach Flores, but Matty Parker a little bit more stern, saying leadership means you attack problems, not people. Fort Worth deserves better. Now, Nettles will be up for re-election next year, and he said publicly on Monday that this is the beginning of an effort to oust him.
What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, it's the state in the mindset of the majority in the Black community, I feel.
Yeah.
Anyone who isn't a Democrat, anyone who identifies as a Republican, they're considered racist. And at one point in time, I thought the same thing, because that's what I was told coming up. I was
Yeah.
raised to vote Democrat down the ballot.
Huh?
Until I went to until I paid attention to policy, one, but until I went to my first Republican meeting, I thought Republicans were the enemy. They're so nice. And I'm not saying that they're perfect, and I said that in my speech. Um, but not only do I lean more conservative, Republicans are, not all, but a lot of them are really nice, nicer than Democrats. But regardless, you don't call someone racist simply because they identify as a Republican. That's just stupid. It's small minded. And in the statement that he made, he said that he was grappling with the idea that we wouldn't have enough votes to support the Citizens Review Board for the police department. That's not true. That's not true. Those audio recordings, a lot of them are from 2023. That board was shot down by the council in 2022. That was just an excuse that he made to the media, for
Yeah.
optics. He was emotional at the time, and he made a statement. That's not true. The truth is, one, he is an emotional man. But he genuinely believes that all Republicans are racist, and it's so, again, it's so small minded. It's so
Yeah.
small minded. But with that video, which was leaked in December of last year, all of this was leaked in December of last year. I'm disappointed in the media because yes, he made those comments in the first part of that video, but what was also attached to the back end of that video is him trying to put out a hit on someone. And although I'm not trying to cause any conflict between me and Mayor Parker, she told the media that questions need to be directed to Councilman Nettles when it comes to the rest of that video. And that's not what a leader does in my eyes. You're the mayor of the city. The council should hold him accountable. If I tried to orchestrate a hit against Mayor Parker or Tim O'Hare, our county judge, I would be held accountable. So why are we ignoring council corruption? That's my question.